Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest. Absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs. Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. I'm a little late in posting this one, about a day, but that's okay because it worked out just fine. I was active on the permies.com permaculture forum this morning because people were asking about herbal remedies for allergies. And then a bunch of them came to mind, and a few other people offered up some suggestions. And it really got me thinking I should do an episode of the podcast on herbal remedies for allergies, hay fever especially. It's that time of year. It's that time pretty much anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere. We've already had our intense clouds of pollen that North Carolina is famous for. Basically, the pine trees, the azaleas, and the dogwoods all bloom about the same time, and we just have these dense yellow fogs that blanket the entire area. And we're on the other side of that, but for a lot of the country, you're just coming into your allergy season. And unfortunately, especially more and more nowadays, people have allergies year round. Now, if you read some of the herbal books, some of the alternative health websites online, people will say, nasal allergies or hay fever. That's what they like to use. The word they like to use is brand new. Didn't exist 200 years ago. I'm going to tell you that's bull. That's just total BS. I have herbal books going back hundreds of years. And yes, they had allergies back then in the springtime and in the late summer, just like we do now. Um, whether it's pollen from flowers, pollen from grasses, wood smoke, um, mold and mildew, things that get up your nose and irritate you. They just referred to it in different terms. They called it catara or catara. That meant congestion, mucosal mucus congestion of the nose, the bronchioles, the lungs. They called it rheums, rheums. They would talk about the rheums of the eyes and nasal passages. That's allergies, basically, okay? They were treating them back then just the same as we are now. But there are a few things that have really changed. It's mainly our diets. We're not eating healthy food anymore. I mean, I mentioned on a show a while back that in Amish country, where they still drink unpasteurized raw milk, the kids don't have asthma. In the rest of America, childhood asthma is an epidemic. For some reason, the federal government has outlawed in all but just a handful of states, South Carolina being one, the sale of raw milk. It's basically a big conspiracy where the big pasteurization companies have consolidated, and dairy farmers have to pay a whole lot of money to get their milk to the central pasteurizer in their area. And those pasteurization companies make a lot of money, and a lot of money goes to politicians to pass laws to keep you from getting raw milk. But it's not just raw milk. I mean, our wheat is less nutritious than it used to be. If you look at wheat, say 100 years ago, before we started using chemical agriculture, It was 90% more nutritionally rich than it is now. Now it's basically all bulk and probably that, and because it absorbs things like Roundup, it's called Roundup Ready for a reason. People have all kinds of autoimmune inflammatory issues. And that's true of a lot of products. I'm not just blaming grains. I'm not just blaming dairy. I'm talking those beautiful ripe tomatoes that you buy in a store that are actually shipped in from thousands of miles away and chemically ripened. Your all those supposedly healthy cereals on the cereal aisle, all this stuff is complete utter garbage. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Well, I practice permaculture. My answer is grow your own food. Grow your own food for yourself and your family. You will save thousands of dollars a year in grocery bills. You will have healthier food. You will have more nutritious food. You will have better tasting food. And if you learn to cook yourself, you're probably going to have a hobby you just love. I do. I mean, I got into a lot of this stuff because I sincerely love food. I'm passionate about food. I mean, uh, I could really go on and on about food, trust me, and I do ad nauseum sometimes. But I mean, literally, just today, I was the most exciting thing that's happened to me in a couple of weeks. I got the original English translation of Escoffier's Le Guide Culinaire, written in 1907. I'm opening it up and I'm like, wow, 221 recipes for sauces, and I'm just like doing a celebration. That's how passionate I am about food. Um, but I bet you if you start raising your own food or buying from a farmer who does it the right way, buying from a produce market, a small grocery store, a meat or whatever you want to call it, a butcher shop that does things the right way, the taste of your food is going to be so much worth any effort you've ever put in to growing it or purchasing it or cooking it, and then you have the health benefits. I'm not even going to get in to all the stories that you can find about people who say they had cancer and got better because they changed their diets. Okay, you are what you eat. You know, Hippocrates said, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." So that's where we make our first and biggest mistake. We're not eating seasonally. We're not eating good food. Our meats are not good. Okay, the cows were not meant to eat corn. They just weren't. Cows were meant to eat grass. We can talk about, controlled animal feeding units where you got millions of chickens packed into one building and the sanitary conditions are so horrific that if they don't keep them pumped up full of antibiotics, the chickens are going to die before they can be processed. Hog farms, even worse. I mean, I can go down the list. We need healthy food. We need more wild food, including wild meats and fish. Trust me, I am no vegan or vegetarian. I'm pretty much anti-vegan or vegetarian, as I think that diet is not only one of the worst things you can do for your health, but one of the very worst things you can do for the environment. I mean, I'm not what you call a big environmentalist, but if you look at how much vegetable-based food it takes to feed a person, as opposed to animal protein, and you look at all the chemicals that monocrop agriculture is soaking that land with, and all the pollution caused by farming like 10,000 acres of soybeans, that is the very worst thing. I mean, look, you don't need a freaking electric car and to be a vegetarian and be looking down your nose at average people because all those soybeans you eat are doing more to pollute the environment than the cow I eat or the deer I eat. Trust me. If you don't believe it, look into it. Check out a book called The Omnivore's Dilemma and start there. And don't think you're a vegan either, because the pesticides are killing millions of bugs on those soybeans, and then the harvesting equipment's killing thousands, tens of thousands of rats and rabbits and birds and other critters that get sucked in there. Those soybeans are not only soaked in chemicals, they're soaked in the blood of animals. You vegans, listen up. And they're one of the very worst things you can put in your body. They will destroy your health. And they'll give men breasts because they have estrogen. Um, Meanwhile, if they grew nice, healthy grass on there, a cow can eat it. The cow self fertilizes the pasture. No chemicals are necessary. You eat the grassy, the cow eats the grass, you eat the cow, and that's the way things are supposed to be. Okay. Now, moving on, we talked a little about that aspect of things, but what actually is an allergy? What is hay fever? Why do we react? Well, it's really your immune system overreacting. It's not that different from like when someone eats, modern grain and their body doesn't know how to process it, and they end up with supposed gluten intolerance or celiac disease. Truth is, if they switch to a primitive grain like einkorn or spelt, and it wasn't soaked in Roundup, and it actually had all that nutrition, and they had sourdough bread, they probably wouldn't react to it the same as they do store-bought, chemically enhanced, chemically soaked and enhanced grains and breads. But that's a topic for another day. And also along with that, the fermented foods. I mean, half our immune system at least, really it's more like 90%, to tell you the truth, is in our guts and in the natural bacteria living on and in our bodies. On every square inch and every cell, I mean, we're covered in bacteria and fungi. And we have to keep that healthy, and that means eating the fermented foods, and that helps prevent your immune system from overreacting. Now, so you're out there, you're cutting your grass or something, and all this dust is flying up in your face, all this pollen is flying up in your face, and you're inhaling it, and your immune system registers on that as if it is an invading organism. It sees it as a germ, a bacteria, a virus, you know, maybe even something bigger than that, a little bug that's going to make you sick. And so it starts an immune response. Well, it's not actually a germ. It's a pollen. It's a particle of dust. It's smoke from your fireplace. It's whatever triggers that allergy. That allergy is your immune system freaking out. And your eyes start watering, getting red and itchy. Your nose starts running. You start coughing. You get a sore throat. You start getting congested. That's your body's defense mechanism. So when this happens, essentially there's several chemicals your body produces that triggers this allergic response. Well, I wouldn't say trigger. This is the response. This is the allergic response. Chief among them are histamines. That's why we take antihistamines when we have allergy attacks, right? The histamine is a specific chemical that has a specific set receptor on what's called a mast cell. The more histamines your body produces, the more mast cells your body produces. This sets up a really bad chain reaction. You may have noticed that over time you seem to develop more allergies. Why is that? I mean, or if you're in an area for a while, like I've had to spend a lot of time in the Sandhills of North Carolina, my primary allergy is to pine pollen. Um, Down here for a while, I started noticing I was allergic to other things I've never been allergic to before. I mean, gardenias, one of my favorite flowers, and suddenly I have an allergy to gardenias. Wisteria, I never had an allergy to wisteria before. Now I have an allergy to wisteria. That's because the histamines being constantly produced by my allergy to pine increase the mast cells. So now, where one thing may have bothered me so little I didn't notice it before, then it became a big deal. New allergies. You may notice that if you start with hay fever, maybe after a few years you start getting hives or you start getting eczema. Um, a lot of times people have food allergies. And, well, I'll just go ahead and tell you how to find out if your allergies are based on a food allergy. It's a very simple test. It's called the pulse test. I have not had reason to do this myself because I have no food allergies. When I was a kid, living in the eastern part of North Carolina, started having bad asthma, went to an allergy specialist. They do this thing where they basically scratch your back with all kinds of little screwdrivers. That's what they look like. And it's called a scratch test. And they see which of these makes your skin react, turn red and puff up. You don't have to do that at home, trust me. But that ruled out all food allergies. I have none, which is a great thing. Uh, I have allergies to pet dander, pine pollen, certain molds, and a few grass pollens. That's what I had then. You can rule out food allergies or find out what you're allergic to very simply. Okay, you eat a light, mild meal through the night. You fasted through the night. In the morning when you wake up, Get up. Don't have coffee. Some people are actually allergic to coffee. Hold off on breakfast just a little bit. You're awake for a little bit. You've had a glass of water. You're not, your heart rate's kind of gotten up because you're moving around. You're not still in your resting sleep position, right? Then you sit down and you're going to take your resting heart rate. Just count your pulse, how many beats per minute. Then eat a small serving of one of the foods you may normally eat. Just one thing. Wait 15 minutes, take your pulse. Wait 15 minutes, take your pulse. Over an hour, take your pulse about, three times. You can go a little further. If your pulse increases from that resting heart rate, you're reacting to that food. That means you have an allergy to that food. Now, it can come up just a little bit just through the process of digestion. Your body does actually have to work hard to digest food. But if you notice your heart rate, your pulse, your body temperature increase, I won't say dramatically, but semi-dramatically. I mean, if it really goes up and it's significant, write it down. All right. Wait a couple more hours, eat another or drink another little something. Do the same thing. All the foods you normally eat, all the beverages you really or normally drink, over a period of about a week, you should be able to find out what you're reacting to and what you're not reacting to. Cut out the foods you react to, eat more of the foods you don't react to, and you can solve a lot of your problems that way. But let's say you don't have any digestive issues whatsoever. It's all nasal allergies and, itchy, watery eyes and a dry, scratchy throat. All right, let's look at this. And this could also include skin allergies, but we'll kind of get into that specifically later. Um, the best thing to do is prevention. You want to look for herbal, we'll call them tonics. These are herbs you would take for a while that are long-term antihistamines. They work in two ways. They reduce histamines. They reduce the production of mast cells. The first and most famous is stinging nettle. Stinging nettle is one of the most nutritious, mineral-rich plants you can get. It is usually a weed. People try to get rid of it. If you have a little spot in your yard that's maybe a little damp, partial shade, it does like some sun, you can get stinging nettle seeds online. You can take that. There's several ways of using it. You can make a tea out of it. You can make a tincture out of it. You're taking the tops of the plants now. This is the leaves and the upper stems. They are called stinging for a reason. They have a venom in it that's like an ant bite or a bee sting. They have little hairs on them that are like needles that inject into your skin and sting. Okay, that's why they're called stinging nettles and why a lot of people don't like them. But put on some gloves, or there is actually a special way of kind of picking them up, pulling them up as you pull back that keeps the hairs from going into your skin. Put on some gloves, use some sense. Pick those tops. Like I said, you can do tea, you can do tincture, you can make soups out of them. They're one of the best spring greens. You can eat them just as greens, whittling them down. You can make what's called well, I guess it would be an herbal infusion. Anyway, it's just you take the dried herbs, put them in a jar, pour simmering water over them, let them sit overnight, and then just drink that as a cold beverage throughout the next day. You're going to get all kinds of nutrition out of that. But it's also antihistamine. It's going to probably make a big difference. I mean, people swear by this and they use it all over the world. We're seeing it'll scrub. The next one is really interesting. It's ragweed. Now, in the late summer, when people's allergies flare up really bad, they usually blame goldenrod and ragweed. Well, actually, they usually blame goldenrod because it's more showy. Ragweed, the flower, is actually what's causing those allergies. This is what's so cool about herbs, and we'll get into this a little bit more. But if you remember when I talked with Tori Lee, the homeopath, we talked about how like cures like. Well, the very ragweed that causes most people's late summer, early fall allergies cures it. The leaf is antihistamine and reduces mast cells. How wonderful is that? So you need to go out now and start scouting for ragweed. There's regular ragweed or common ragweed and giant ragweed. The leaves are absolutely identifiable. Do a quick search, you'll find them on Wikipedia or something. Go ahead and start collecting those leaves and dry them and have them for use year round. You will thank yourself for doing that. Trust me. Another one that I love, one of my absolute favorite herbs, is mimosa. Mimosa is what they call an invasive weed here. It's a beautiful tree with flowers. It's a nitrogen fixing plant in the legume family. I don't know why anybody doesn't want mimosa. I love it. I always have loved it. It's absolutely one of my favorite trees. And I don't care if it originated here or it got brought here. It's a good plant to have. And one of the chief reasons why is it is the most powerful reducer of mast cells that I know of. There are others. This is the one I know about. Um, in about 2, 3 weeks, it's going to blossom here. And I'm going to be going out all over the place, getting all the mimosa flowers and leaves and little tips of stems I can get. You'll dry them out. I will probably offer some for sale. They smell sweet. If you make a tincture of it, just taking the dried herb, putting it in with vodka, it tastes like watermelon. So this is one I like to use. I mean, you can make little cocktails out of it or just take, a teaspoon a day medicinally. It also helps relax the muscles and it helps with pain. Mimosa is what we call slightly narcotic, meaning it lowers respiration. You'll hear me talk about that on my show about herbs for pain. But for allergies, it is essential as far as I'm concerned. Mimosa doesn't grow in everyone's area, but there are mimosas that are not tree form mimosas. You can probably find one. Mimosa has some other interesting properties too, but that's all contained in the root. And you can look that up on your own if you want to. I'm not going to get into it, but um, the tops, the tips, the leaves, the flowers are what we're talking here for allergies. Lastly is one I talked about last week, and I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. Sweet vernal grass. I'm getting some seeds. I'm going to try to grow it. It says a cup of tea made from sweet vernal grass is an instant cure for hay fever. Well, again, like cures like. Most of the pollens we're really allergic to are grass pollens. So that's an excellent one. I can't wait to add that to my repertoire. And along those lines, like Tori said, the homeopathic remedies for allergies, two of the main ones are one that's based on alliums, which is onions. You think about when you cut an onion, it makes your eyes water and your nose stuff up and your nose run. If you take a homeopathic remedy of allium or onion, it prevents that, like cures like, right? And as crazy as that sounds, it actually does work. I know that one. I tried it myself. I was having horrible allergies. My head was swollen up like beet red. I could not breathe through my nose. My eyes were watering. And I was working, and someone said, "Hey, try this." And it was little sugar tablets, a homeopathic remedy. And I looked at it, I'm like, there's nothing in here that's going to help me. This is onions. Right? But I tried it, and like a half hour later, my allergy symptoms entirely subsided. So it worked for me. That's all I can say. The other one is made from bee venom. When a bee stings you, you have that allergic reaction. It swells up, it gets all red, and it hurts, and it gets itchy. Well, like cures like. So the bee venom homeopathic remedy is very good for that. And another thing about stinging nettles is a lot of people will purposefully sting themselves with the stinging nettle. They say it helps with, like bee venom, joint inflammation. It helps with not only allergies, but arthritis. A lot of arthritic conditions are autoimmune, and that kind of really does make sense, actually. It's also what you call rubefacient. It makes the area hot. Um, it kind of can distract the brain from the pain. It's really feeling in the joints to a pain that's a little more manageable, which is surface pain on the skin. You can get into a lot of interesting stuff with that. But one of the most common folk remedies is very much along those lines of like cures like, and it's local honey. If your allergies are really pollen related, um, the bees in your area, if they're being raised naturally, hopefully they are utilizing the nectar from and pollen from all those flowers and grasses, and they're making honey out of it. And if you take a little bit of that honey every day, your body can adjust to those allergies over time. People swear by that. I mean, that's folk wisdom that goes back millennia. Um, and also, what else is like cures like? Well, if you get a sore throat, it burns. Well, what else burns? Garlic. Take some garlic and crush it, let it sit out for 5 or 10 minutes. That allows the oils, the volatile oils, to oxidize a little bit, and then eat it, and it will burn your throat. Well, garlic is anti-inflammatory. It supports immune function. It calms the immune system. It is also antiseptic and antibiotic. So, by eating that garlic when you're having bad allergies, not only can it help kind of shrink that tissue and make things feel a little bit better, um, cut the mucus a little bit, can prevent sinus infection or throat infection. Those volatile oils go straight up into your sinuses when you eat the garlic. And there's so many folk remedies that combine garlic and honey. Well, there are other things you can do, and I learned a lot about this from Michael Moore at the School of Southwestern School of Botanical Medicine. He came up with some really interesting formulas, and I'm just going to read my class notes to you for a minute. This is really for chronic inflammation, autoimmune disorders, and allergies. Okay, and those are all very related. One leads to another. They're just they're in the same family. He said, first of all, he recommends a mineral tea to be taken 2 to 3 times a day, prepared fresh each time, using any available combination of alfalfa, red clover, stinging nettle leaf, Mormon tea. That's well, we get into Mormon tea a little bit more in a minute. That's saffedra, oat herb, or dandelion leaf. So any combination, you can get a hold of those. Basically, that's going to give your body all the minerals and immune support it needs to help keep your immune system calm so it's not overreacting. You may notice that you have worse allergies when you're tired and stressed, and that's because your body's just worn down. This supportive tea, it can help with a lot of things. And I mean, I'm talking everything from hay fever to MS. I mean, this is something you want to look into. Again, I'm going to tell you it's alfalfa, red clover, nettle leaf, Mormon tea, oat herb, or dandelion leaf. Any combination you can get of those, all of them if you can get them, one or two if you can. Made fresh, taken 2 to 3 times daily. Now, for chronic mucosal congestion, that's going to be mucosal congestion, generally in the lungs, but it can certainly be the sinuses, can actually be in the intestines too. Add to the above oxeye daisy, Canadian fleabane, tick seed, horsetail, yerba mansa leaves, or pearly everlasting. Those you will see in so many allergy formulas. They help just get rid of that congestion. And like Canadian fleabane, tick seed, very closely related, oxeye daisy, they're also astringent. They help tonify the tissue. They can also help stop bleeding, by the way. If there's chronic intestinal congestion, again, he's going to say Canadian fleabane. Um, it's really good for colitis, by the way. Walnut leaves, sumac leaves, jojoba leaves, or fireweed. Fireweed is a great herb you can forage for. Look for it where there's recently been a wildfire. That's why it's called fireweed. If it's the skin or joints or the primary reactive tissue, add betony or hedge nettle. That's stackies, by the way. Desert lavender, self-heal, rosemary, basil, lemon balm, agastache, yerba mansa, chamomile, pineapple weed, ginger root may be used if it doesn't aggravate the skin or digestion. Some people, it's a little hot for them. Doesn't bother me. If the lungs are the primary reactive organ, add oxeye daisy, horsetail, that's equisetum, pearly everlasting, cudweed, yerba santa, or desert lavender. If the liver is the primary reactive organ, add pearly everlasting, cudweed, pussy toes, agrimony herb, dandelion leaf, erodium, rosemary, or basil. So you see there's a lot of overlap on this. And you may have a couple things going on. I mean, you may have asthma and an inflamed liver, okay? Um, so you could combine this, no big deal. Supplements he recommends are vitamin E, vitamin C, magnesium, selenium, chromium, zinc, omega-3, that's fish oils, antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. He recommends chaparral, milk thistle, mahonia, turmeric. We'll get into that a little bit more. Licorice root, ginkgo. Get into that a little more in a minute. Green tea, andrographis, coleus, boswellia, astragalus, desert willow, and then flavonoids such as blueberries, huckleberries, prickly pear fruit, cactus flowers, um, all kinds of aurelia berries, mulberries, rose hips. These are, antioxidant rich, anti-inflammatory berries usually. All right, so that's for chronic inflammation, chronic autoimmune, and allergies. Starting with that and thinking of that as terms of I'm going to take this tea and these supplements every day, and I'm probably not going to have any allergies for the rest of the year. That's really powerful stuff. And like I said, you don't have to do all that. He's basically saying just pick one or two out of each category. Now, it was interesting when he got into asthma specifically because asthma is just an epidemic these days. What I was saying, and yeah, it could have something to do with air pollution, but I really do think it is diet. And so, um, with asthma, you would want to add some antispasmodics. There's so many things that can set off an asthma attack. It can happen different ways. You can eat a bronchodilator. So you remember I mentioned Mormon tea. Mormon tea is our native ephedra that's like mahuang in China. Very similar to caffeine. It can be used in the same way. In an asthma attack, it's a bronchodilator. It opens the lungs up. So will tobacco, believe it or not. Like cures like, remember? So will lobelia. That's an excellent one. Lobelia is a bronchodilator. You would need expectorants, things to help break up and loosen and cough up the mucus. There's so many good ones. You know, mullein. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about mullein in a bit. Um, oh, I love angelica. Thyme is probably the best. Thyme, just a simple herb, thyme that you might use in cooking. Wonderful expectorant herb. Um, Antispasmodics could be anything from cramp bark, that's viburnum, could be skullcap, could be a little bit of Jimson weed, the leaf of Jimson weed, a little inhaled smoke. And I'm not saying take it as a tincture. I'm not saying you smoke a lot of it. It's in large quantities is a powerful and scary hallucinogen. It can actually be poisonous, but a tiny little bit of one leaf smoked is a very powerful antispasmodic that I'm not going to recommend, but it was in all the old asthma remedies that were sold over the counter in drugstores even recently. And it's still being used in what's that product? MagnaLife. MagnaLife is a an ointment or a lotion that's specifically good for back and leg pain, sciatic pain, restless leg syndrome. It's got, I think it's belladonna. Those are very closely related in the belladonna family, the Solanaceae family. Um, Datura, in the Datura family, they're very closely related, and that antispasmodic property really helps with leg and back pain. So even though that's an herb that can definitely be very dangerous, it's still commonly used by herbalists today. So don't freak out about it. Just be responsible. Um, let's talk about, pleurisy root. I really should have mentioned pleurisy root. For lung congestion, the name says it all. Pleurisy root is basically chronic pneumonia. It's just really that inflammation holding on to the fluids of the tissues. And pleurisy root is expectorant, relaxant, just helps get that out of there. And as a cough remedy, how about wild cherry bark, black cherry bark, um, choke cherry bark, really any cherry bark, even your cultivated kinds, so far as they're not soaked in chemicals, are expectorant and antitussive, which means they stop coughing. So, all right, I think it covers lung allergies. Oh, what about sore throat and a cough? Well, honestly, I don't think there's anything um, better than just good old-fashioned sage tea. Sage is astringent, it's antiseptic, and it reduces secretions. So sage tea not only kind of tightens and soothes the sore throat and helps stop the cough, but it also can kind of reduce some of the mucus production. The old saying, why should a man die if he has sage in his garden? Goes back to the ancient Greeks who saw sage as a cure-all. There's so many things. Okay, horehound. Horehound is a great herb. It's in the mint family. And mint, hey, throw some mint in with that sage tea. Mint's going to make that sage tea, I would say, 10 times more powerful in taking care of that sore throat and cough. But horehound is a strongly medicinal member of the mint family. Horehound has so many properties. It's good for coughs, it's good for colds, it's good for wheezing. Um, it causes a secretion of more fluid in the mucus, so it thins the mucus. So, if you have that thick congestion, it can help clear it out so your cough is more productive. I mean, it's more expectorant, but it also thins that mucus. It's antiseptic, it's antispasmodic, it's diuretic. It's a very strong expectorant. I mean, it really can help with a thick, cruddy, allergy, phlegmy cough. I mean, one of those just nasty, you're going around going, "Ugh," awful's making awful sounds. It's also stimulant and tonic, so it can help those tissues tighten back up when they've been inflamed. Plantain being combined with that, absolutely a great combination. Wow, okay, so back to a couple that can help as tonics to calm the immune system, strengthen the immune system so it doesn't overreact. There's a good herb. I mean, there's a good article on a website called learningherbs.com. What a great website. Wish I had registered that name. It's called Eight Herbs for Seasonal Allergy Relief. And they discuss reishi mushroom, that's Ganoderma, and the herb astragalus. Now, this is Chinese astragalus, Astragalus membranaceus. Astragalus membranaceus. Um, Taken over time, excellent to help prevent allergies. I would put those in with the nettles and, the sweet vernal grass and the ragweed and the mimosa. You take all that together, you're probably not going to have a whole lot of issues at all in the first place. And it talks about nettles, it talks about horehound. And remember I mentioned goldenrod. Goldenrod, very, very few people, in fact, I've never run across a case of someone being actually allergic to goldenrod. It just happens to be in full bloom at the same time of ragweed. But goldenrod's very high in vitamin C. It helps move fluids. It helps with the sinuses. It helps expectorate. It helps thin the mucus. It's very good for any allergies and colds. Definitely include that as a tincture and a tea. Just take it with your ragweed because they grow together. And again, we're talking like cures like. Now, in the burr family, there's a very interesting and well-researched herb. It's called butterbur. Now, this is one you can't really make yourself unless you really know what you're doing because it has to be processed in a way to remove a toxin. The toxin is, it's called PA or pyrolizidine alkaloids. These are toxic to the liver. You don't want to do that, okay? But you can get an extract of butterbur that has been processed, so it doesn't have that in it. That's something you're probably going to have to buy. I like to make everything myself, but sometimes we do have to buy things. Um, it has a lot of studies, been used in Europe for a long time, clinical research to help with allergies, but especially for asthma and also migraines. It's been found, according to this article, look it up, to be comparable or better than Zyrtec or Allegra. How's that? It can be used symptomatically or daily for chronic allergies. Definitely one to look into. Okay, they recommend horseradish for clearing the sinuses. I don't consider that an allergy remedy, but yeah, okay. You can also do a nasal wash, right? Nasal wash. You need to add a little salt to the water because our fluids have salt in them. You never want to just put straight water in your nose, your eyes. Wash it out. Some people put a little bit of baking soda in there too. Just go real gentle with it. A lot of the old herbal books recommend golden seal, and it's really the berberine, the yellow pigment in the golden seal. There's a lot more berberine in barberry or Oregon grape, and golden seal is a plant that's been overharvested and threatened. So unless you're going to grow it yourself, go get yourself some barberry or Oregon grape. It's also Gold thread is a little flower that has berberine in it. But anyway, those two, super easy to get. And if you pull up one Oregon grape bush, you're going to have enough root. And actually, the berberine's in the leaves. It's in every part of the plant, so far as I know. The inner bark, maybe not the central hardwood. You can make a ton of Oregon grape tincture off of one bush. I mean, like for one person, a lifetime supply. You can use that as a tea for a sore throat. It has astringent and antihistamine qualities. You can use it to gargle with. You can use it in a nasal wash. You can use it in an eye wash. If you have a cut or a wound, you can soak in there because it tightens those tissues and it's antiseptic. So great to have a berberine tincture of any type on hand that you can get ethically for a wide range of conditions. Also, great for digestion. It's a bitter. It's one of the most bitter substances. It stimulates the liver. It stimulates the gastric juices. I've said before, the very best thing I found for my asthma and allergies is bitters, especially Swedish bitters. They contain 22 different herbs, and many of those are decongesting herbs or anticatarrhals. They tighten tissue, they tonify, they enhance immunity. I love my Swedish bitters. I have a shot glass full every morning. And, I wake up congested or wheezing or coughing or my nose running. I go in and take my Swedish bitters, and 10 minutes later, I'm fine. I've said before, it's the best cure for the common cold I've ever found. It's also the best cure for allergies I've ever found. It's not a cure-all, but I'm darn close. Uh, mullein is one I mentioned. Mullein is just so good for the lungs. And it's also good for the throat. It has some antihistamine properties. It also soothes and helps break up the congestion. I love mullein. Well, by the way, pleurisy root is Asclepias tuberosa. It's in the milkweed family. Don't confuse pleurisy root with milkweed, though. Very different plants. But it is expectorant. It's vasodilator. It's it's diuretic. It's antispasmodic. It's everything you're looking for in a good lung herb. And a lot of people say you can use yerba masa interchangeably. Yerba masa is not native to my area. I don't have a lot of experience with it. So a few more here. Let's get into uh, we could talk about skin allergies just a little bit. With hives, I've found they don't react well to much of anything topical. That inflammation just gets so flared up, you really kind of have to let them run their course. Take your internal antihistamines. But for rashes, for eczema, for itches, I mean, you can use berberine again. You can use your golden seal if you have to, but more preferably some barberry. Let's see, you could use crushed flaxseed as a poultice. You could use chickweed. Now, chickweed's a really good one for that. Some good ones for gargling or sore throats. A warm infusion, that's a tea. Use normal words and not fancy ones. Of hyssop, lavender if you're not allergic to it. I actually am allergic to lavender. Marjoram, thyme is excellent. Oh, let's talk about eye washes. So your eyes get red and itchy and irritated. Well, again, you're going to want to do like with a sinus wash, just a little bit. I'm talking like a half teaspoon to a teaspoon of salt in a cup of water. And you could use some of those berberine containing herbs. You could use a good astringent herb. These are where your rose family astringents really come into play very well. You can use rose petals. You can use so many. Geranium, wild geranium. Anything that is a mild astringent will work basically just like Visine and shrink those capillaries down, pull the inflammation out, take the redness out, make them stop itching. St. Hildegard von Bingen was a big advocate of putting violets on the eyes. Now it could be a infusion again of violet petals, or she would just take the leaves and flowers and crush them up and put them on the eyes at night as a poultice. You can do the same thing with sliced cucumber. I mean, anybody who's ever seen a spa treatment knows that the sliced cucumber pulls the inflammation out of the eyes. For eyes, again, eye bright. That's euphrasia. That's if you can find euphrasia, use that for your eye washes. It's great. It's what it does. And The old herbalists really believed it would help your vision too. Plantain, good for allergic rhinitis, toning mucous membranes and healing inflammation. Ground ivy is astringent, reduces phlegm, good for drying secretions and inflammation. Agrimony is one of those astringent herbs, heals damaged mucous membrane. Any of your bitters, you can use gentian, you can use any barberry, any of your bitter herbs there, is because really is where the immune system starts. And when you eat, you need those secretions breaking down the food, or the proteins from your food can be identified by your body as germs and can start an allergic response. You need good digestion to prevent allergic reactions or inflammatory reactions. And that's why I think taking a dose of bitters before every meal is one of the very best things I've ever done for my health. It can also really help with blood sugar if you have an issue with that. Cabbage. I mentioned skin allergies. Just leaves of cabbage are anti-inflammatory and healing for many rashes. And heartsease, which is violet, as an anti-inflammatory, soothing to the skin. All right, so those are some other options, some things to look at. The only thing I would just kind of caution about is don't go too overboard on like cures like. know, I have read many naturalist, outdoors people, uh, herbalists talk about poison ivy and poison oak, saying that if you early in the season when the leaves just come out, they don't have a lot of oils, were even to eat those leaves, you could build up a tolerance to poison ivy and not have a reaction. I am not going to recommend that. If you choose to proceed at your own risk, at your own peril, I should say, because people who are strongly allergic to poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac, if they take it internally, that can create an internal inflammation that can cause your throat to swell shut or, other deadly symptoms. So take it easy on the like cures like in this regard. Don't think, I have a super awful allergy to pine pollen, so I'm just going to stuff as much pine pollen up my nose as I can and hope I get over it. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. It really, you'll probably die. Don't do that. Um, but what does work and what you can do, what I did a couple years ago, was make a pine needle wine and sip on it. This was when COVID was coming in, and I used it for antiviral purposes. Uh, I also didn't have allergies to pine trees that year. That's pretty cool. Um, so I'm going to leave you with that. There are probably some other herbs we could discuss. If you have some suggestions, send them to me. We'll probably revisit this topic at a later time because there really are a lot of herbs that could give a lot of people a lot of relief, less expense, and far fewer side effects than prescription or over-the-counter products. So, see y'all next week. Have a good one. The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.